Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press. And join us for the upcoming Central Valley Daily Social. Come to the KVPR studios to get a behind-the-scenes look at the making of this podcast. Join us this Thursday, October 9th for pizza, drinks, and a Q&A with the podcast team. Space is limited. Find more details, including how to RSVP, at kvpr.org/events.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. It's Wednesday, October 8th. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Could we be witnessing the revival of local news in western Fresno County?
I cannot wait to get a reporter to sit in those city council meetings, because they haven't had a reporter sit in a meeting at school board or council for 15 years.
That conversation with a Valley publisher in just a few minutes, but first, these headlines. Fresno State Assembly member David Tongipa is calling for the resignation of the state's insurance commissioner. Ricardo Lara is facing an investigation for lavish travel and spending allegedly financed by taxpayers. The trips were first reported by a Bay Area ABC affiliate, which also reported Lara missed key meetings while traveling. The Fair Political Practices Commission is reviewing the complaints. Tongipa, who represents parts of the valley, including Clovis, says that Lara's travel represents a, quote, betrayal of public trust. New data shows Fresno is a more prosperous city than it was 12 years ago. KVPR's Carrie Klein explores more of the analysis done by a leading valley nonprofit.
Fresno is used to being an underdog city in California. Incomes are consistently lower than the state average, and unemployment is higher, but that may be changing. Since 2013, the city climbed 30 rankings among major U.S. cities when it comes to economic inclusion, and 60 places for racial inclusion. Ashley Swearingen is the city's former mayor. She says these are some of the best economic gains she's seen in decades.
I fell off my couch when I saw that in the draft numbers.
Swearingen now leads the nonprofit Central Valley Community Foundation, which is celebrating 5 years of its major economic program, the Fresno Drive Initiative.
It's up to us to figure out how do we turn that bounce into consistent, more widespread improvement. Let's take this momentum and let's rededicate ourselves to the next 5 years of growth.
In other words, this is no time for a victory lap yet. For KVPR News, I'm Carrie Klein.
And the Central Valley Community Foundation is a financial supporter of KVPR. The Trump administration has backed off plans to cut more than $1 billion in federal grants for crime victims in states like California. The reversal follows a multi-state lawsuit claiming the cuts to the Victims of Crime Act was political, an attempt to pressure states that don't align with Trump's immigration policies. UC Davis law professor Kevin Johnson says federal threats to cut funding is part of a growing pattern.
Federal government under President Trump is using all the levers at its disposal to try to push state and local governments, but also universities, to follow a particular party line.
Johnson says courts have repeatedly struck down similar funding conditions since only Congress can impose them. But he warns these threats still send a message that states risk losing money if they don't fall in line with Trump administration policies. Residents with health insurance through Covered California will see their premiums skyrocket if Congress does not extend a subsidy. That could affect nearly 185,000 people living in the San Joaquin Valley. That's according to our news partner, The Intersection. They report the premiums could more than double in the valley, making insurance unaffordable for many. The subsidy is a particular issue in the current government shutdown. A Covered California spokesperson tells our news partner, The Intersection, that time is running out because renewal notices must be sent by October 15th. Open enrollment will begin on November 1st. The California Public Utilities Commission is reviewing a complaint that alleges the state's largest utilities are not meeting state-mandated deadlines, specifically deadlines around connecting rooftop solar panels to the electric grid. The complaint alleges that deadlines are missed by the utilities as much as 73% of the time. Pacific Gas and Electric and Southern California Edison say they'll address the complaints through regulators.
Support for Central Valley Daily comes from Fresno Mazda, part of the Prieto Automotive family, leading the industry in the IIHS 2025 Top Safety Pick Awards, helping move Mazda closer to the goal of eliminating traffic fatalities. More information and the Mazda digital showroom available at myfresnomazda.com.
And now to our main story. The way we consume local news these days is changing. Newspapers are thinner and delivered less frequently, and there are less journalists working in general. According to the nonpartisan nonprofit Rebuild Local News, newsroom employees have declined 60% since 2000. The organization puts that decline on par with the coal industry. But in the San Joaquin Valley, one organization is trying to buck that trend. Mineral King Publishing is actually expanding its operation. Mineral King Publishing owns the Sun Gazette and Mid-Valley Times newspapers, which serve Tulare and Fresno counties, and it just purchased 3 additional publications: the Kerman News, Firebaugh Mendota Journal, and Westside Advance. To find out why Mineral King Publishing will be adding these hyper-local newspapers to the company's portfolio at a time when most local news outlets are struggling to survive, I spoke with Vice President and Executive Editor of the company, Paul Myers. He starts our conversation by telling us more about these rural newspapers in western Fresno County.
These 3 papers were owned by one company, which was the Kerr West Incorporated. And they were owned by some older folks whose family had run it. And they, like 15 years ago, moved out to Texas. And then it was a brother and sister who are, now elderly, kind of running it from afar. Mm-hmm. They didn't have a reporter in town. They didn't have a sales rep in town. They were just kind of printing these 3 papers, piecing together coverage. So that way there was something for those communities. And when they had met us, they kind of saw an opportunity to say, we don't really want to see these things die, which is why we're still running them the way that we are. But we also just can't keep doing it this way. We want to retire. And so they offered us an opportunity to purchase those. And we were happy to do it. And so it kind of adds to our banner, but it also, I don't want to see local journalism go away either, because even these papers that were really struggling just over and over, there was no real original reporting going in these things. When they go away, they don't just go away. Like, you can't just come in and pick it up and then revive it. So like if they just got dropped, we wouldn't be able to come in and save them after that. So like there's a threshold where once they stop operating, you can't just like buy it on the cheap after that. Like there are things that keep going on revenue-wise, business-wise, community-wise, where if it goes away, it kind of goes away forever. And even if you come in and try to pick it up or mimic it somehow, like there's a reputational loss and you kind of like lose the buy-in from the community. Even if it wasn't that great before, it's really hard to regather that. So we didn't want to see it. So we didn't really want to see it go.
What do you say to folks who are asking, why are you doing this? Like in this climate, we're all on our phones. We're getting news on TikTok. Why now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have a good answer for that per se. I mean, I can give you my reason.
Yeah.
My reason is that I think that we've been living with the internet in our pocket as long as we have for the last 20 years. And that has given people a very odd sense of what is news. And because the news is presented in such fire hose type fashion, I think it's really hard for folks to prioritize what is really important versus what isn't really important. And if you look at an old paper from the 1940s, you would have war font, size things on the front page. That's how you knew what was important.
Right.
Now you have World War III and, Cardi B in the same phone width, And you're just like, well, I really like Cardi B. It's like, yeah, this other thing's really important too, by the way.
Interesting.
And also the incentive structure on the internet has changed, whereas the incentive structure for print largely has not.
With the acquisition of these 3 papers, is your hope to expand their coverage and their staff, or what's the goal?
I would love to. Currently, I'm the one that's writing all of this, or at least sourcing most of it. And I'm also running a foundation and another company, and the company that I'm currently talking about, Mineral King Publishing. So I'm relying a lot on my current staff to come up with some of the Fresno County coverage on the west side. So that's very helpful because they're attending the Board of Supervisors meetings as is. The hyper-local stuff, what's going on in Kerman, what's going on in Firebaugh, what's going on in San Joaquin, I cannot wait to get a reporter to sit in those city council meetings because they haven't had a reporter sit in a meeting at school board or council for 15 years.
Yeah.
And, I can't wait until they have somebody to know, like, oh, the Fourth Estate is here. This is very important that I know that and that people are looking.
So what's next for you and Mineral King Publishing? Do you hope to keep expanding and serve other papers here in the Valley?
I would hope so. I think that if folks are looking to walk away from local journalism, whatever outfit they have, because I know that there's a lot of legacy media, and we talk newspapers because that's the company that we're in, that are finding it hard to sell because there's not really a wanting buyer for legacy media. However, I and Reggie and you and all the folks here at KVPR understand the really important role that local journalism plays. And like I said, when these newspapers go down, it's really hard to resuscitate them. So if they're looking to sell or they're looking to kind of keep it going, like, yeah, we're definitely in the market.
What's interesting, too, is the newspaper that I had my first job at, it was owned by a company out of Georgia, Morris Multimedia, and it was purchased by a local owner. Do you think that's a trend? Is there a benefit to local ownership for these local outlets?
For sure. I can tell you for us, we have a weekly print product, and we're also online, and we publish our stories online daily. And I look at, our nearest competitor. So for the Mid-Valley Times, that would be the Fresno Bee, and for the Sun Gazette, that would be the Visalia Times Delta. And you can pick up those papers, and you'll find 1 or 2, maybe 3 very local, hyper-local stories with some original reporting. And then you'll see a load of wire stories, or you'll see a load of crime, things like that. And the thing is, crime doesn't really help you make the best decision for your day. It doesn't, unless it's like a trend piece where it's like, there's a lot of crime going on in this area. Like,
right.
We want to know why. Like, that's the type of crime story we should be getting. Otherwise, I want to know what the city council's up to. I want to know what the special district or irrigation district or school board or planning commission are up to, because that's the decisions that eventually affect your life. Maybe not today, probably tomorrow, and certainly in a few years. And so if you aren't on top of that, it certainly isn't going to be this generation where the corruption takes place, but it will be the second one or the third one. After you get through about 4 or 5 election cycles, politicians start realizing what they can get away with. And without a Fourth Estate, they can get away with a lot.
That was Paul Myers, Vice President and Executive Editor of Mineral King Publishing. Thank you for joining me in the studio.
Thank you.
And that is today's show. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. You can find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
Sources and methods, the crown jewels of the intelligence community. Shorthand for how do we know what's real? Who told us? If you have those answers, you're on the inside, and NPR wants to bring you there. From the Pentagon to the State Department to spy agencies, listen to understand what's really happening and what it means for you. Sources and Methods, the new national security podcast from NPR.